Welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the sources you shared and turn complex information into crucial understanding. For years, China's JY-27 radar was marketed as a stealth killer, a system supposedly capable of detecting and defeating America's most advanced aircraft. Venezuela built its entire air defense network around it, but when real combat arrived, something shocking happened. Within hours, those radars went dark, screens flooded with interference, command networks collapsed, and the so-called stealth killer never fired a shot. So what actually happened? Was this a failure of Chinese technology, or a glimpse of how modern U.S. electronic warfare really works? Before we break it all down, hit like to kill. If you want more real-world military analysis, subscribe for weekly deep dives, and share this video with anyone who still believes stealth is obsolete. And now I want to hear your take. Was this inevitable or overhyped tech meeting real war? Drop your opinion in the comments. Debate is wide open. So we're really moving beyond just the tech specs of one radar here. Today we're digging into the geostrategic fallout of this total military collapse.
It's a huge deal. You're talking about a defense architecture that sources called the steel defense line of South America.
And it was just, dismantled in a few hours. This is a massive cautionary tale for any nation looking at non-Western defense suppliers.
It is. And what's so fascinating is the story that was built around it. Venezuela was, being positioned as this major player in Latin America. They spent a fortune on this Chinese gear.
Right.
So this wasn't just a simple military purchase. It was a political statement. They were boasting about having the most modern system on the continent.
It feels like they were deliberately pivoting away from the usual suppliers from the West. They wanted to be Beijing's flagship client, right?
Exactly. The sources call it the showcase for Chinese military equipment in Latin America. This stuff was sold explicitly as being capable of countering the West.
Which brings up the big question. Did they buy the showcase or did they actually buy the capability?
Well, they definitely bought the components. Yes. And they bought the promise. The air defense, specifically, it was all anchored on two key systems, the JYL-1 long-range radar, and then the big one everyone was watching, the JY-27.
The counter-stealth radar.
The stealth killer.
Yeah.
And on the ground, they had, all the latest amphibious and mechanized units, the VN-16s, the VN-18s, and the SR-5 rocket system for fire support. On paper, it's all top-tier hardware.
Okay, let's spend a minute on that JY-27, because that's where the whole myth really starts, isn't it? It's a meter wave radar.
It is. And Venezuelan officials weren't shy about it. They were publicly boasting that this thing could lock onto US F-22s and F-35s.
From hundreds of kilometers out.
Hundreds of kilometers. And to be fair, the physics behind that claim isn't completely crazy. Meter wave radars use very long wavelengths.
Right.
So those waves can sometimes bypass the special shaping and coatings that make stealth aircraft, stealthy to other kinds of radar. So in theory, they can get a detection.
And the next step in that theory was that they could then use that detection to guide their S-300 missiles.
That was the whole plan. The perfect counter to America's biggest advantage in the air.
So theory meets reality. The U.S. operation starts. How did that vaunted counter-stealth capability actually perform?
It didn't. It vanished. The timeline here is what's really shocking. Within hours of the operation kicking off, the U.S. launched this absolutely crushing electronic warfare offensive, EW.
And the sources say the intensity was just overwhelming.
Completely. And the focus of the EW wasn't trying to hide from the radar. It was about destroying the radar's ability to even work.
Okay, so paint a picture for us. If I'm an operator in that command center, what am I seeing on my screen when that EW blitz hits?
You're seeing chaos, total sensory overload. The sources say radar screens were immediately flooded by powerful jamming. Your clean picture of the sky just turns into digital snow, indecipherable static.
So the radar's powerful, but that makes it a big target for jamming.
It can, yeah. The EW just poured so much noise into its operating frequencies that the radar couldn't possibly distinguish a real signal from the interference.
So its ability to detect stealth aircraft was completely irrelevant.
It was. Because the system couldn't process any data at all. You're not defeating its ability to see, you're defeating its ability to think.
Once it was blinded.
The next step was quick. The jamming gave cover for anti-radiation missiles. They just homed in on the powerful signals the JY-27 and JYL-1 were still trying to pump out.
So the crucial takeaway is that the counter-stealth promise, it never even got a chance to be tested.
It never came into play. The entire air defense command system was blinded and deafened from the very beginning. It was a preemptive kill.
That's incredible. And that just sets the stage for what happened on the ground. Air defense is gone, so the U.S. has total air superiority. How did that affect Venezuela's Marine Corps with all those brand new VN-16s and VN-18s?
This is where that idea of a system of systems defeat gets really, really brutal. That Marine Corps was, on paper, the best equipped amphibious force in South America. But those vehicles, they need real-time intelligence. They need air cover.
And they had none.
They had nothing. The moment the JY-27 went dark, those ground units lost their early warning. They lost their data links. They lost any hope of protection from the air.
So it wasn't about the quality of the tanks themselves. It was the network that was supposed to support them.
Precisely. The sources are very clear on this. The failure wasn't from direct combat. These expensive, advanced machines became, and I'm quoting here, easy targets for U.S. attack aircraft and drones. They were liabilities.
And we have some anecdotal evidence that really drives this home, don't we? It wasn't just about vehicles being destroyed.
No, and this part is telling. Battlefield footage shows that a lot of these VN series vehicles weren't even hit. They were just abandoned by crews on beaches or highways after the first airstrikes came in.
So a total collapse in morale.
It points to a morale collapse, yeah. Driven by a feeling of being completely exposed. The troops knew they were blind and alone. They lost faith in the system.
What about their fire support? The SR-5 rocket launchers. They're powerful systems.
Powerful, yes, but they need data. The SR-5s rely on a central network to give them accurate targeting information. With the radars gone and the network in chaos, they couldn't get that data.
So they couldn't shoot because they didn't know where to aim.
Exactly. Another example of excellent hardware crippled by a fragile network.
And just to complete the picture, local air and naval power.
Non-existent. The K-8W light attack jets were entirely grounded. The patrol boats with their anti-ship missiles, they were sitting ducks. The U.S. had such overwhelming battlefield awareness that it was impossible for them to even try to mount a coordinated defense. It was a simultaneous defeat across every single domain.
Which brings us to the big conclusion. Military observers looked at all this. Was the problem the Chinese hardware itself, or was it something deeper?
The analysis in the sources is pretty clear. This was not a failure of any single piece of equipment. It was a comprehensive defeat of Chinese-style command and control system.
The system, not the parts.
The system. The individual weapons, the tank, the radar, the missile launcher, they might all work fine on a test range, but they completely failed to work together as a resilient whole.
So let's define that technological gap a little more. Where is that specific vulnerability?
It's the ability to survive in a complex electromagnetic and precision strike environment. Western military systems are built with redundancy, with hardening, with frequency hopping, all baked into the C2 network itself.
Okay.
The Chinese export model, at least based on what we saw here, seems to rely on a more centralized and possibly less protected data network. You take out that nerve center, and the entire body is paralyzed. The tanks, the radars, everything.
What does this say about China's military export strategy, then? They can sell you the impressive hardware.
They can sell you the hardware, absolutely. But their ability to knit it all together into a jam-resistant, highly survivable operational network, well, the sources say there's significant room for improvement.
And that's the huge geostrategic fallout, isn't it? This whole conflict was, for China, an embarrassing technical reckoning.
A very public one. This wasn't a minor skirmish. It was a live-fire demonstration of systemic failure. And you have to think, nations all over the world, in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, who have been buying up Chinese defense systems, are now asking a very hard question.
If Venezuela's top-of-the-line system collapsed this fast, what about ours?
Exactly. It forces them to rethink everything. It shows that buying impressive specifications on a brochure is not the same thing as buying operational resilience in a real war.
So this could actually push potential buyers back toward Western or Russian systems that are proven to be more robust against this kind of attack.
It has to be on their minds. The systems that were marketed as the great counter to the West proved to be extremely fragile when they actually faced a modern integrated opponent. Makes you wonder if you've invested billions in a glass hammer.
So this deep dive shows a pretty stark lesson. The stealth killer myth wasn't just busted, it was shattered by superior electronic warfare that hit the command and control network first. It exposed a fundamental weakness in integration that has massive consequences for the global arms trade.
And that really leads to the final question for you, for the listener, and for military planners everywhere. The source material calls this an embarrassing technical reckoning. So how does the proven fragility of these showcase systems change things? Does it force other countries using this same architecture to pivot their entire defense strategy? Do they have to reconsider their alliances, knowing the core of their military might be built on a system that could fail within hours of a real conflict?
A lot to think about there. The true cost of electronic warfare and the domino effect of a system collapse. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you gained some crucial insights. Make sure to check out the other deep dives in our catalog. If you found this discussion valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the Geostrategic Podcast for more in-depth analysis on topics that shape our world. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay tuned for the next episode.